What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for a Tottenham update just before we make our way to Craven Cottage, as things seem to be unfolding finally for Tottenham, especially for outgoings in this transfer window. So let's start off with talking about Jed Spence. As earlier in the day, Charlie Eccleshare says that Leeds are closing in now on a loan deal for Jed Spence. No option or obligation, but a fee of around 1 million for the loan deal, and expected to be wrapped up in the next 48 hours. And then later on, Romano said that Jed Spence, set to join Leeds on loan from Tottenham, agreement has been reached today between the two clubs. And the latest update is Jed Spence is ready to travel to Leeds to undergo a medical as a new Leeds United player on loan. Tottenham set to receive a 1 million loan fee, no option clause included. So that's the first one out.
Yeah, and I think, look, for Tottenham's point of view, I think it makes sense and it's a good move, because I think you allow him another year to try and build up some value, maybe build up some interest from other clubs, because it seems as though there's not much interest right now. He'll go to an attacking team like Leeds, and hopefully, he'll be part of a promotion push. But I think from Spence's point of view, it's probably a bit of a setback that he can't find a better club than Leeds, because even if he has a great year, he's pretty much back to where he was, 2 years ago. At the end of the day, after a great season of Forest, so he would have hoped, after having a great season in the Championship and getting in the Team of the Year, that his career would be in a different stage at this point. And the fact that he's now facing another year in the Championship must be a bit of a setback. But at the end of the day, if there are no other offers, then maybe that's where he's at, and maybe he has to go forward. So it is a shame for him. But from Tottenham's point of view, it's probably better to let him go on loan now than a cheap permanent deal, and see if we can get some more money for him in a year's time.
Yeah, that's how I'm thinking about him. He has to go backwards to go forward, because basically his first year in the Premier League couldn't have gone pretty much any worse than it did. Hardly any sort of minutes whatsoever. When he did get minutes, it was just minutes like at the end of games, 1 minute here, 1 minute there. And look, he didn't do anything to kind of fight his way back into any Tottenham teams. Conte doesn't fancy him. Postecoglou doesn't fancy him. So, I mean, apart from Nottingham Forest, who kind of know what he can do, I kind of understand not any Premier League teams trying to take a punt on him. And I think going to Leeds, a team that's going to be fighting at the top echelons of the Championship this season, I think it's a good move for him, and a good move for him, so he can put himself back in people's thoughts. So I think if he has a good year at Leeds, even if Spurs don't want him, there should be some takers for him higher up.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it's a setback for him to go back down to the Championship, but it's something that he has to live with because of the year he's had. So that's is what it is.
Next up, let's talk about this Eric Dier situation. As I thought I was living in, I had a bit of deja vu today when I'm seeing all these Bayern journalists pop up again. But Florian Plettenberg says that Dier has been offered to Bayern Munich again and again in the last days. The transfer possibility of the 29-year-old was discussed internally, as he can play centre-back and in defensive midfield. The topic is still in the transfer board of Bayern Munich. And Mano Bonka says that Bayern are interested in Eric Dier. So who could write this stuff?
Franz Beckendier. That's what we're going to start calling him now. Unbelievable. I actually can't believe this is a genuine possibility that Eric Dier could find his way at Bayern Munich. Well, apparently part of the reason is they see him as a player who can cover centre-back and defensive mid, and they're looking for a player potentially who could play defensive mid, but Dier's not up to that role anymore. Playing in that centre-back role as well for a team like Bayern Munich, who, look, in one way, I'm thinking a team like Bayern Munich, who are going to have a lot of possession, I do think his passing ability for a centre-back is actually pretty decent. So I understand that, but we just know, like, defensively, if you're going to be playing with a high line and trying to suffocate the opposition, Dier is just going to be the weak link in the chain for you, and that's got.
You're not really selling him, are you? You're not really selling him.
I think on the ball, I can understand. I can kind of understand. I actually think, as I say, he's got a good passing range for a centre back. So I don't look. I'm baffled if this one actually comes to fruition. Be an unbelievable move for him. Failing upwards, pretty much for Eric Dier would be incredible. Maybe Harry Kane could do with a mate around. The experience Eric Dier. He does have international experience as well, and maybe being in the Bundesliga. Maybe he won't be as exposed, but maybe it's in the Champions League more. If he ever gets any game time, he's going to be found out a bit. But I'd be amazed if they actually conclude a transfer for him. I'll be absolutely gobsmacked.
I think this would be an amazing move for Bayern Munich, an amazing move for Eric Dier. Now, all jokes aside, I think it's absolutely nuts to hear about this. I think Harry Kane has to have some sort of dealing in this, to be honest. We know how close they were, part of the leadership group together. And I don't know, maybe you got a feeling of maybe the Bayern boss is going up to Kane going, got any ideas for us someone that can play midfield and centre back? And he's like, well, funny you should say that. I've got the perfect mate of mine that who's been very trusted throughout his whole tenure at Tottenham, and he goes by the name of Eric Dier. So if you want another round with Daniel Levy, I think this one might be a bit easier for you to navigate than the one for me. So look, if we can get this one done, this will be a transfer dealing for the ages, because we all desperate for Eric Dier to leave the club, and for him to get a move like Bayern Munich would just be a win-win on all parts. A massive move for Dier, a massive win for Spurs, but Bayern Munich will be losing out a bit.
No one had Dier to buy it on their bingo card this year for 100% for transfers. I said to you the other day, there's going to be something out of the blue that's just going to surprise us, and maybe that's it.
Let's hope so, man. Let's hope so, because if this deal gets done, I mean, if it does get done, does that kind of think that maybe we can keep Sanchez and bring in another centre-back?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, look, to be honest, yeah, because I can't see us bringing two centre-backs at this late stage. I think we're only going to bring in one. And if we are only going to bring in one, I'd rather Dier be the one who leaves and Sanchez stays. But if we can bring in two, I would still sell Sanchez. But look, we all know you need four. So I think if that's the case, if Dier looks like the one leaving, I think Sanchez probably does stay. Maybe that's why. We'll talk about it in a minute.
And also, this is what I've been saying all along over the past week or two updates. We need to do our best to get Eric Dier out the door, and then get Japhet Tanganga out the door, and as a third option, get Davinson Sanchez out the door and recoup any centre backs that we've got rid of.
You had great foresight to see Bayern Munich coming in.
Yeah, massive. But even if Bayern Munich didn't come in, you either offer him on loan for his last year of his contract, or you just terminate the contract and come to some sort of mutual agreement, because it doesn't help anyone him just sticking around here.
Yeah, no one wants Dier at the club at the moment.
Next up, Giovani Lo Celso. Romano says that Ange Postecoglou is happy with Gio to stay at Tottenham. Positive feedback on the Argentinian midfielder who's likely to continue at Spurs. It will take an important bid to change the club's stance for Lo Celso in the final days. And Gaston Idil saying Lo Celso is staying at Tottenham. He is in the club's plans for this season. So no secret there, really.
Yeah, no surprises. Look, we know Barca are kind of struggling for money. They want him, but I'm assuming they only want him on loan, so that ain't going to happen. I guess Napoli, there was strong interest to see him from Napoli. And maybe, considering they did miss out on Vega, maybe that is one to watch for the last couple of days if they actually decide to stump up the money. But at the moment, I don't think they want to pay the 25 million or whatever, or 30 million, whatever it's going to take to get Lo Celso out of Tottenham in his current rate. We're not accepting any loan deals right now. So I think with a few days left, I think it's pretty foregone conclusion now that Lo Celso will be a Tottenham player. And I'm very happy about it, because he's good quality midfielder, provides another option, adds a bit more flair and creativity to the midfield as well. And if Maddison does pick up an injury, we won't have that sense of dread of how we will replace him if Lo Celso wasn't here.
Yeah, I mean, hearing these stories about Lo Celso over the past week or so didn't really make sense to me, because he's our only other really creative outlet in the middle of the park. And if he has to go, we're going to have to bring in another one. And we're already so fully stocked there in midfield. It just didn't seem feasible to me. So I think this is the obvious option to happen. Let's talk about Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg. Fabrizio Romano says that Hojbjerg has chances to leave Tottenham in case they negotiate a good proposal. He was discussed as an option for Manchester United, although they have not started concrete negotiations. And Dan Kilpatrick says that Man U have been offered the chance to bid for Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg in the final days of the window. Hojbjerg would like to leave Spurs, where he is no longer guaranteed to be first choice in the midfield, and he has 2 years remaining on his contract. So how do you see this one playing out?
I think he stays. I don't think he goes to United. I think no. Okay, I'm not necessarily saying he's definitely staying, but I don't think he goes to United. I don't think they pay the money that we want for him, and I think he is a good option to have. And I just don't see anyone paying the money we want, unless we're going to soften our stance and maybe go to 25 million or 20 million. I don't see anyone paying. I think we want 30 million right now. I don't see anyone paying it, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, I kind of agree, to be honest. And look, he's a great guy to have around the squad. He always gives 100%. He's got good ability, but it's all about his mentality. And is he going to get really frustrated by just being on the bench week in, week out, not playing, only playing a bit part role, coming on in games and stuff like that? I'm not too sure.
It's up to him to up his game. I think he's capable of it, and maybe if he can show a different level to his game, like a bit more ability on the ball, a bit more ability to drive forward, and we know he's got that ability off the ball, and we know he's got some decent passing ability. But if he can like be a bit more consistent and show that he's capable of playing the football Postecoglou wants, then he'll earn his spot. But it's up to him, really.
Mm. And last but not least, in terms of the outgoings, let's talk about Davinson Sanchez. L'Equipe say that Rennes have made a €9 million bid for Davinson Sanchez, but Tottenham are ready to let him leave for a fee of 10 to 15 million euros. Charlie Eccleshare, though, did say that Spurs would want to bring in a replacement for Sanchez if he does leave the club, and have rejected the €9 million bid for Rennes from Davinson Sanchez, as he says they want 15 to 20 million euros for Sanchez. But look, if there's any sort of possibility of Dier and Tanganga leaving, we have to keep Sanchez.
Yeah, we'll see how the other plays out. I think if we get a good offer for Sanchez, look, we have to replace him, obviously. If there's no replacement, there's no point letting him go. But if we get a good offer and we can replace him, I think we just let him go. I would do that. Take the money and focus our efforts.
We've left it too late. There's too many moving parts at this stage.
Yeah, maybe. But I think look, even if it means having Phillips or whatever, I just think Sanchez has been here too long, and I know he's done decent in preseason, but I think we're not going to get a fee later down the line. And I think even if it means blooding in a youngster, I think if we get a good offer, if we get an offer that's acceptable to us, I think we let him go. That's what I would do. I would sell him. I'll take the money, because even if he stays, yeah, he's been all right, but I still got big reservations about him. Of
course, there's going to be reservations about him, but we can't be just selling our players just to leave ourselves short. Obviously,
if we want them out. Backs and a youngster, then it is. If we can sign a replacement, then I'm happy. Then I would sell him.
Replacement, yeah, but we need two centre backs that can come in and do a job. We have no idea.
All three, even if we sell all three, buy one and have Phillips, I'll take it.
I think I'd prefer just to keep Sanchez around in that case. If we are going to look to sell all three and only bring in one, I'd prefer to keep Sanchez around just as extra cover, to be honest.
It depends what offer. If we get a good offer of over 10 million, I would sell. If we don't, then I'd keep him.
Yeah, I would keep either or, to be honest. I think I would prefer to keep Sanchez around and lose out on that 10 million than to leave ourselves short and potentially, going through an injury crisis or something like that. Then, we're going to be out on our legs, and we're going to have to be relying on a youth player, effectively 18-year-old player to play at the back for us.
If we have an injury crisis, do we have an injury like this, maybe in January we can resolve that situation with the money that we bring in. For me, if we can get one in and we can get all three of them out, I would do it, because I think it's worth it for the long term.
Look, at the end of the day, Sanchez is going to be leaving sooner rather than later. If it's not this window, it's going to be next summer at the very latest.
You might as well take the 10 million.
Yeah, but I would not want to leave ourselves short for this coming season. That's the whole point.
As I say, only if we get a replacement. Then I would do it. If we can sell him for 10 million, I would sell him.
But getting rid of three and only bringing in one is not adequate replacement. We need to bring in two.
Back and Phillips up until January. That's enough, and for 6 months.
I hope so. But you see how unlucky we get at times.
Yeah, Emerson can fill in there potentially. We've got options, I think. For
Davis as well.
Davis, maybe. It's 6 months. It's really not the be all and end all, and we can use that money that we get to buy someone, hopefully.
All right, let's move on to the final topic, and this is the only incoming we're going to be talking about today, and this is regarding Brennan Johnson. The Athletic says that Daniel Levy initially offered 20 million and Davinson Sanchez earlier in the summer to Nottingham Forest for Brennan Johnson. Nottingham Forest expect him to leave it late with another bid and holding her out for around £45 million. Romano says that Brentford have currently left the conversation for Brennan Johnson, focusing on different targets. Tottenham are prepared to insist in talks with Forest. Spurs already held positive talks on the player side, and now discussions taking place on the club side. Brennan Johnson to Tottenham is now very concrete. Negotiations are ongoing between the two clubs. The Times says that Tottenham are getting closer to agreeing a £50 million deal for Brennan Johnson, with the forward preferring to move to Ange Postecoglou's side over Brentford, and Nottingham Forest confident of Spurs reaching their valuation. And Dan Kilpatrick finally says that Tottenham are hopeful of agreeing a deal with Nottingham Forest for Brennan Johnson. Brennan is understood to have stated a preference for joining Spurs, while Ange Postecoglou is a massive fan of the Wales international. So you kind of get the feeling that this deal's going to happen now.
Yeah, things are definitely hotting up when it comes to Brennan Johnson. And look, adding another forward player with pace to the forward line is definitely going to benefit us, and it's definitely going to give us more options, in my opinion. I still think, the way we play at the moment, I still think he's going to have to adapt. I don't think he's perfect for it right now, but I do think he's got qualities that we could use 100%. And I think definitely being one of the quickest players in the league is going to add probably more a much needed pace to the front line, which maybe you could argue is a bit lacking. And I think as well, on the times where maybe we do have to play sometimes transitionally, obviously he's perfect for that. And maybe in games where we are maybe going to have less possession against teams who are better, potentially he could be really valuable in those kind of games as well. And look, he's only 22. I'm sure he's going to get better. I'm sure he's going to get better at taking on his man, and I'm sure he's going to improve his all-round game for if he does play up front. So I think it is an exciting move, and I think a young player who showed what he has shown in England over the past couple of years is definitely something to be excited about. I don't expect him to, in the way we're structured, to make an immediate impact and hit the ground running. I think he's got a lot of learning to do, but I am excited about the prospect of him joining the team.
There's also a case to say, we've only ever seen him in transitional teams. He's played for Wales, he's played for Nottingham Forest, both teams that play fairly defensive football on the counter-attack. We've never seen him playing on a front foot possession-based team ever before. So obviously we don't know how he can fit into those kind of systems, but I believe because Ange desperately wants him, he's seen something in him that he thinks that he can play this kind of way and in his system. So as long as Ange wants him, I'm more than happy to bring him in. I'm a big fan of Brennan Johnson. I think he's got absolutely dynamite speed. He knows how to finish and find where the net is. And for Nottingham Forest, I think in the last year in the Championship, 18 goals. In the last year in the Premier League last season, 8 goals. That's nothing to be sniffed at. That's more than bloody Kulusevski and Richarlison got combined doubled. So I bring him in. I like Brennan Johnson, and I don't really get all the hate coming for him, to be honest. He's just a young player coming through.
I definitely don't get hate. If anyone who's being super negative about it, I don't understand it, because he's a very good young player, that's for sure. What I would say is, I like, that there are other young players in the league, Bukayo Saka or people like that. I don't think he's on that level or anything in terms of where he's at the moment. But I do think he's for a player of his age, he's definitely ahead of a lot of players who are older than him. And I do think he's shown and more than enough in the Premier League to suggest he's going to be a very good Premier League player down the line, 100%. And even now he can contribute. I'm not going to expect crazy numbers in his first season, but if he can get 10 goal contributions from now to the end of the season, that's probably a good target for him. With goals and assists for a young player. And I think he can be a brilliant option off the bench. I think if we are playing away from home where other teams leave more space, he can be brilliant in those games. And I think once he starts to learn how Ange wants to play him, I'm sure he's going to start to contribute against lower blocks and teams and settled defenses as well. Although I do believe right now he might have his struggles, but I do think he can work them out. So he's a great finisher. He's good with both feet. He's really good at running it behind. We know that. I think he's got really good technique. And I think he's growing as a player. He really is. I think he really is growing really well. So I'm all for it. And he's versatile, can cover the centre on the right as well. And we don't really have an option like him who can just on the right, especially on the right, who can go on the outside of his defender and do cutbacks and get to the byline. Because Kulusevski likes to cut inside. He can get to the byline, but he's not maybe as good as Brendan Johnson might be. So he provides us different options, different ways of attacking, youth, pace. I think there's a lot of upsides to this deal.
Massive amount of upside, to be honest, and also the English quota, which is really important for us.
Homegrown as well, yeah.
The homegrown quota, yeah, because we did the video, was it last week? And that section of our squad is literally in dire straits, no pun intended, at the moment. And I think he ticks so many boxes for us. And I don't like, you get all these people being like, oh, just go get this guy, go get that guy. People don't understand how desperate we are for homegrown players and how desperate we are to get the foreign players out. We've got 20 foreign players in our squad and we're only allowed 17. So we're so desperate for it at the moment. And also, when you look at the homegrown players in our squad, the majority of them we want out. So we're even more desperate for them. So that's the situation on Brennan Johnson. Hopefully, and by the way, I think 50 million is a bit too steep for him. But look, with all the kind of stuff that we've just spoken about, how desperate we are for someone like that, desperate we are for homegrown players, I kind of understand paying a bit above the odds, to be honest.
That's the market. If you're dealing with Premier League teams who also have no big financial troubles at the moment, albeit apparently Forest might have a bit of trouble with FFP, but I think 50 million would be the going rate for a player like him.
How much did Gordon go for last year?
He went for a similar 45, 50, something like that.
Yeah.
And he hadn't even shown any half as much as what Johnson has shown.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say, like, I prefer to have Brennan Johnson than Anthony Gordon. Although exactly. I do rate Anthony Gordon though.
Yeah, so I think it is an overpayment, but you got overpay in this market, unfortunately.
Yeah. Apart from if you're getting James Maddison in somehow. No, I don't know how we pulled off 40 million for James Maddison. It's absolutely nuts. And 25 for Bissouma as well. It's just like, how do we pull off these deals?
Don't say too much. Levy might start getting too much credit.
Well, we did sell Harry Kane, so we'll just leave that. But look, thank you everyone for joining us today. That is your Tottenham update. Join Barry and Iggy in the studio tonight for the watch along for the Fulham game in the Carabao Cup second round. Thank you everyone. We'll speak to you very soon. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.